They never met in the ring. No bell, no gloves touching, no winner announced. Yet, for decades, the question refused to die. Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, speed versus fury, calm versus chaos, wisdom versus raw force. But the real story was never about who would hit harder. It was about who would last longer in mind, in meaning, in memory. Because while one man conquered opponents, the other conquered moments, pressure, and himself. And in the end, only one thing decided what violence never could. This isn't a fight story. It's the truth behind why legacy always wins. The world couldn't let go of the idea because it felt unfinished. Boxing fans are trained to seek closure through collision. When two giants exist in different eras, imagination rushes in to complete what reality never allowed. Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson became that unfinished sentence, not because they crossed paths, but because they represented two extremes of power that people desperately wanted to measure. Ali belonged to a time when boxing was theater as much as violence. He spoke, he provoked, he educated, and he challenged more than just opponents. He stood in front of crowds and cameras and carried himself like the fight had already begun before the bell rang. Tyson arrived decades later, like the opposite force, silent, compact, predatory. Where Ali expanded the moment, Tyson compressed it. Fans didn't just imagine a fight, they imagined a verdict. They wanted history to declare one form of dominance superior to the other. Speed against brutality, intelligence against intimidation, longevity against destruction. The question wasn't really about technique. It was about identity. Every generation tried to answer it for themselves. Older fans leaned toward Ali's movement and mind. Younger fans leaned toward Tyson's raw force. Commentators fed the debate because it never died. It kept boxing alive between eras. A hypothetical fight that refused to stay hypothetical. What made it so compelling was timing. Ali had already become myth by the time Tyson rose. Ali was no longer just a boxer. He was a symbol. Tyson, meanwhile, was still in motion, still feared, still capable of ending a fight in seconds. The overlap never came, but the contrast did. People wanted to know if wisdom could survive fury, if patience could neutralize chaos, if longevity could overcome youth. But those questions hid something deeper. They were really asking what kind of strength matters most when time is added to the equation. The obsession also revealed how uncomfortable people are with unanswered questions. Boxing history is full of definitive outcomes, wins and losses, knockouts and decisions. Ali versus Tyson offered none of that, just imagination. And imagination makes people restless. Media kept the question alive because it created endless content. Fans kept it alive because it created endless argument. But neither side stopped to ask whether the question itself was flawed. Because once you ask who would win, you've already narrowed the meaning of greatness. Ali himself understood this. He had lived long enough to see how quickly public opinion shifts. He knew that a single loss never defines a career, and a single win never explains it fully. Tyson's career, too, would later prove that dominance without balance can burn out quickly. The imagined fight became a mirror. People projected their own beliefs about power onto it. Those who valued control chose Ali. Those who valued destruction chose Tyson. The debate was less about boxing and more about worldview. What the world couldn't let go of wasn't the fight. It was the need to simplify greatness, to reduce two complex men into a single violent moment, because complexity is harder to digest than collision. Ali represented endurance through change. Tyson represented intensity without pause. One adapted across decades. The other peaked like a flame. The contrast was real, but the comparison missed context. The world wanted a winner, because winners are comforting. They close debates, they end discussion. But Ali versus Tyson refused to end, and that refusal made people uneasy. Because deep down, the question wasn't who would win in the ring. It was who would still matter when the ring was gone. That's why the fight the world couldn't let go of was never really about fists. It was about time. Mike Tyson didn't enter boxing like a contender. He entered like a shock. There was no adjustment period for the public, no slow buildup of belief. Fear arrived before familiarity. Long before people understood his style, they understood the outcome. Fights were ending in seconds, and the violence felt compressed, sudden, unavoidable. Tyson's power wasn't just in his fists. It was in the atmosphere that surrounded him. Opponents didn't simply prepare for punches. They prepared for panic. His presence alone distorted confidence. Fighters made mistakes before he touched them. That psychological pressure was part of his weapon. He moved differently than heavyweights before him. Shorter, faster, explosive. He closed distance like an animal that had already chosen its prey. There was no room to breathe, no space to think. The ring felt smaller when Tyson stepped inside it. Every fight reinforced the myth. Knockout after knockout, bodies falling, crowds screaming before they could even react. Tyson became an idea as much as a boxer. The idea that pure aggression, refined and unleashed, could overwhelm anything in its path. But aggression demands fuel. It feeds on rage, hunger, and momentum. Tyson's style required constant emotional intensity. The same fire that powered him also consumed him. There was no neutral gear, only acceleration. As long as the chaos was controlled, Tyson looked invincible. Trainers shaped his fury into structure. Discipline gave the violence direction. But structure is fragile when emotion becomes the engine. When discipline slips, intensity turns inward. Tyson's dominance came fast, but it came narrow. He ruled through fear, not adaptation. When fear faded, cracks appeared. Opponents who survived the early storm began to see space where none existed before. Loss didn't just affect Tyson physically. It shook the identity his power was built on. When violence stopped being absolute, uncertainty entered. And uncertainty is dangerous for a fighter whose strength depends on certainty. The public had mistaken destruction for stability. They assumed dominance meant durability. But durability requires balance. Tyson's style left little room for adjustment once momentum shifted. As pressure mounted, the storm began to consume itself. Personal chaos mirrored professional chaos. The very intensity that made Tyson unstoppable early on became unmanageable later. Without internal order, external power loses direction. This wasn't a failure of talent. Tyson was immensely gifted. It was a failure of sustainability. His style was designed to end fights quickly, not careers slowly. It didn't age well. The imagined fight with Ali often ignores this. People focus on the early rounds, the initial collision. But real greatness reveals itself over time, not in the opening moments. Tyson represented a type of power that dominates immediately. It overwhelms. It terrifies. It wins now, but it struggles with patience, reflection, and decline. When Tyson slowed, when resistance increased, when the storm met friction, there was little beneath it to stabilize the force. That absence mattered. Tyson's reign was real. His fear was real. His dominance was undeniable, but it existed within a narrow window, and windows close. This is not a dismissal. It's a distinction. Tyson was built to conquer opponents, not eras. His power burned bright, but it burned fast. The question of Ali versus Tyson often ignores what happens after the initial collision. It assumes power exists only at peak. But boxing history is written in chapters, not moments. Tyson's storm was unforgettable. But storms pass. What remains after the sky clears tells the true story. And when time is added to the equation, raw violence alone is never enough to carry a legacy forward. Muhammad Ali's power never announced itself all at once. It unfolded, it adjusted, it learned. Where Tyson's strength arrived like an explosion, Ali's arrived like a presence that grew heavier the longer it stayed in the room. His dominance was not immediate fear, it was long-term control. Ali didn't just fight opponents. He studied them. He read rhythm, breath, timing, emotion. He understood that every boxer carries habits, and habits reveal weakness. Ali's gift was patience. He could wait long enough for a man to show himself. Even before the bell, Ali was working. His words were not random noise. They were tools. He unsettled opponents mentally before touching them physically. But unlike Tyson's intimidation, Ali's psychological edge didn't rely on terror. It relied on confidence so complete that it destabilized others. Ali moved like he was thinking while fighting. His feet weren't just fast, they were intentional. He created space when others needed distance and closed it when others felt safe. He controlled the tempo of fights the way a conductor controls music. What separated Ali most was adaptability. When speed faded, he didn't panic. When youth disappeared, he didn't retreat. He reinvented. Rope-a-dope wasn't just a tactic. It was proof of intelligence under pressure. He learned how to survive storms rather than rush into them. Ali understood that power changes shape over time. He didn't cling to one version of himself. He allowed evolution. That willingness to adapt is rare, especially among champions who taste dominance early. Where Tyson relied on overwhelming opponents quickly, Ali was willing to suffer. He could endure punishment without losing identity. Pain did not erase him. It sharpened him. That endurance extended his relevance far beyond his physical peak. Ali also carried meaning outside the ring. His fights were never just fights. They were statements, cultural moments, tests of belief. That gave his career depth that no single knockout could provide. Even in defeat, Ali gained stature. Loss did not strip him of power. It added dimension. He remained central to boxing conversation even when he wasn't winning because he represented something larger than outcome. Ali's calm under pressure was not passive. It was deliberate. He trusted himself enough to let moments breathe. That trust allowed him to see opportunities others rushed past. As his body slowed, his mind expanded. He leaned more on timing, positioning, and awareness. That shift kept him dangerous when logic said he shouldn't be. Longevity isn't accidental. It's earned through adjustment. Ali's power also aged into wisdom. When he spoke later in life, people listened differently. His presence carried weight independent of performance. That separation between self and ability is rare among athletes. The imagined fight with Tyson often ignores this evolution. It freezes Ali at a single moment instead of understanding him as a journey. Ali was never just one version of himself. He was many, layered across time. Ali didn't need peak dominance forever. He needed relevance forever. And relevance comes from meaning, not force. That's why his name stayed central even when his hands no longer were. He wasn't invincible. He was resilient. And resilience lasts longer than fear. Ali's strength was built to survive decline, to carry dignity through loss, to remain intact when the body faltered. That is a different kind of power entirely. When people ask who would win, they often imagine the opening rounds. Ali understood the later ones. He built his greatness for endurance, not explosion. His calm wasn't an absence of aggression. It was mastery over it. He chose when to use force and when to withhold it. That choice defined his career. Ali didn't just outbox opponents. He outlasted eras. And that ability cannot be measured by hypothetical collisions. When time enters the equation, Ali's power doesn't fade. It deepens, and that is why his presence still feels alive long after the bell has stopped ringing. Legacy is what remains when the noise is gone, when the crowds leave, when the belts are retired, when the body can no longer perform at its peak. Violence cannot survive that test. It is tied to the moment. Legacy is tied to time. This is where the imagined fight between Ali and Tyson quietly resolves itself, not in punches, but in endurance. Violence answers the question of who wins now. Legacy answers the question of who still matters later. And those are very different measurements. Mike Tyson's power demanded immediacy. It relied on shock, fear, and rapid conclusion. When it worked, it was overwhelming. But when it failed, it left little behind to stabilize the fall. Violence does not forgive hesitation. It does not adapt easily to decline. Ali built his career with decline in mind, even before it arrived. He understood that speed fades, strength weakens, and bodies betray champions. So he anchored his greatness to something less fragile. Meaning, principle, identity. Legacy is shaped by how a man handles loss, pressure, and time. Ali lost fights and gained stature. Tyson lost fights and lost direction. That difference is not about talent. It is about foundation. Ali's career expanded beyond the ring because it was never confined to it. He became a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and conviction. His stand outside boxing gave his achievements inside boxing a deeper echo. That echo is what violence alone can never create. Tyson's dominance lived almost entirely inside the ring. When the ring stopped rewarding him, the structure collapsed. There was nothing larger to hold it up. Legacy requires more than victory. It requires context. Ali's life forced him to confront consequences bigger than defeat. Exile, criticism, loss of years, loss of prime. Those trials shaped him. They refined him. They made him human in a way fans could carry forward. Violence thrives in simplicity. Legacy thrives in complexity. Ali's story is complex. It contains contradiction, sacrifice, evolution, and humility. That complexity allows it to age without breaking. Tyson's story, at its peak, was simple. Destruction, fear, dominance. But simple stories struggle to mature. When the central force disappears, the story ends. Legacy also depends on restraint, on knowing when not to act. Ali's most powerful moments often involved refusal. Refusal to fight, refusal to insult, refusal to conform. Those refusals gave his story depth. Violence demands attention. Legacy commands it without asking. Ali's presence grew even when his voice softened, even when his movements slowed. That growth cannot be forced. When Tyson later spoke about Ali, his tone revealed something important: respect, distance, recognition. He understood that Ali existed on a plane violence could not reach, not because Ali was stronger, but because Ali was larger. Legacy is not decided by hypothetical matchups. It is decided by what survives interpretation. Ali's life continues to be interpreted, taught, and revisited. Tyson's peak is remembered, but it is contained within a period. Ali represented continuity. He bridged generations. People who never saw him fight still feel his impact. That is legacy in its purest form. Violence can end a fight. It cannot shape a future. Ali shaped conversations. He reshaped how athletes see themselves. He expanded the meaning of what a boxer could be. The question of Ali versus Tyson collapses under this weight. Because once legacy enters the room, violence loses its authority. The terms change. Ali's power extended into silence, patience, and endurance. Tyson's power demanded immediacy. One compounds over time. The other peaks quickly. This is not a judgment of character. It is an observation of structure. Violence is explosive. Legacy is cumulative. One cannot replace the other. Ali understood that winning moments is easy compared to surviving time. That understanding shaped every choice he made, inside and outside the ring. When history looks back, it doesn't ask who would have won in a hypothetical night. It asks whose presence still informs the world, and that answer requires no punches at all. The question everyone keeps asking sounds simple, but it carries a misunderstanding at its core. Who would have won, Ali or Tyson? That question assumes greatness is proven in a single night. It assumes power is measured only by impact. It assumes history is decided by collision. Muhammad Ali understood why people asked it, but he also understood why it could never produce a real answer. Because Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali were built for different purposes, Tyson was engineered to end fights quickly. Ali was shaped to endure pressure slowly. One was optimized for destruction. The other was designed for survival, adaptation, and meaning. When people imagine the fight, they freeze both men at their peaks. Tyson at his most ferocious, Ali at his fastest. But Ali was never just his peak. He was his decline, his exile, his return, his losses, his patience, his silence. His greatness cannot be isolated to one version of himself. Tyson's power demanded the moment cooperate. It needed fear to land early. It needed certainty. Ali thrived in uncertainty. He adjusted when things went wrong. He learned when he slowed. He grew when he lost. That difference matters more than any opening exchange. Ali had already faced something more dangerous than Tyson's fist time itself. And he didn't collapse under it. He transformed. That transformation is what the question ignores. Tyson himself would later speak of Ali with reverence. Not competitive bravado, not dismissal, but acknowledgement. Because even Tyson understood that Ali existed beyond the boundaries of boxing, beyond the ring, beyond the idea of winning. Ali didn't need to defeat Tyson to surpass him. He didn't need to prove anything physically. His victory came from outlasting comparison itself, from becoming untouchable by hypothetical outcomes. The truth is, if they had fought, someone would have lost a match. But no match could have decided what Ali became, and that is why the fight never needed to happen. Ali's legacy absorbed questions instead of answering them. It turned curiosity into reflection. It forced people to rethink what strength looks like when youth fades and noise disappears. Tyson's story teaches us about raw force. Ali's story teaches us about direction. One shows what happens when power is unleashed. The other shows what happens when power is governed. That is the real resolution of Ali versus Tyson. Not a winner, not a knockout, but an understanding. Because the greatest fighters don't just win bouts, they leave something behind that cannot be taken away. And when everything else fades, the speed, the fear, the belts, legacy remains. That's why the fight the world wanted never mattered, and why the answer was never violence. They asked who would win. They always do, but history doesn't reward the strongest punch. It remembers the strongest presence. Mike Tyson showed the world how terrifying power can be. Muhammad Ali showed the world how enduring power becomes when it's guided by purpose. One dominated moments, the other outlived eras. And when the noise fades, when the fights are forgotten, when the question finally falls silent, only one thing remains standing. Not violence, not speed, not fear, legacy. And that is the fight Muhammad Ali never had to take, because he already won it.